Peace and blessings. Welcome back to the channel once again, where we talk all things health and healing from a holistic perspective, and today will be no different. Today you're going to learn the 9 lessons I learned while living in a blue zone, Okinawa, Japan, to be specific, for over 4.5 years. I'm going to tell you all the lessons I learned. Now, what is a blue zone? A blue zone is a geographical area, and there's only 5 around the entire world, where people not only live the longest, but they live the healthiest. These areas typically have the highest amount of what are called centenarians, people who live to 100. Okay, so I experienced that for over 4.5 years in Okinawa, Japan. And so what I'm gonna do today in today's video is I'm gonna explain to you and tell you some of the lessons that I learned that you can incorporate in your life and lifestyle, so that you not only can have a long and prosperous life, but you can also be healthy while you're doing it. And that's the most important thing, because when you look at the life expectancy for people, both in places like the UK and also here in the US, what you're noticing is that it is going up. The life expectancy is increasing. But here's the caveat to that. Although our life expectancy is increasing, so we're living a little bit longer, we're also living longer lives with dis-ease in our body. So Alzheimer's, dementia, cancer, kidney failure, heart failure, strokes, aneurysms, these things are exploding, going up. They're increasing. So people are living longer, but they're living longer with dis-ease. They're living longer with dementia. They're living longer with health conditions that are affecting their ability to actually live. Okay? And so it's important for us to know and understand what are those key lessons that we can incorporate in our lifestyle, that as our life expectancy begins to increase, we're not only living longer, but we're living a healthier and more prosperous lifestyle. Okay, so I'm gonna share with you those 9 lessons that I learned while I lived in Okinawa, Japan. But before we get started, I'm gonna give you the 5 blue zones. So there's 5 around the world. There's only 5. Now I want you to think about this for a second. There's 54 countries in Africa alone. Okay, now think about the entire world. The entire world, there's only 5 blue zones. Okay, and these blue zones share some of the similar characteristics that I'm going to share with you today. And some of these are things that I just simply observe. You know, having the opportunity every weekend to go to the northern parts of Okinawa to spend time in Ogami village and see these people who are 97, 100, 82, 85, walk up hills, ride bicycles, farm, garden, you know, climb trees. I've even saw somebody who was like 90 climb a tree. And so having the opportunity to do that, it really shifted how I thought about aging. And it shifted my perspective on lifestyle and healing and health and happiness as well too. And you'll kind of get the gist as I go through explaining these 9 lessons that I learned. Okay, so those 5 blue zones are going to be in Icaria, Greece. Okay, also Sardinia, Italy. Okay, also in Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica. Also in Loma Linda, California, which is interesting. You're thinking like, wait, California is on the list? But it's mostly because there's because of the population of 7-day Adventists, and many of them are also plant-based, and we're going to talk about the importance of that in terms of longevity. And then also Okinawa, where I lived for 4.5 years, and had the opportunity to study, observe, and experience the culture in a blue zone. Okay, so let's get started. The first lesson that I learned, and I learned this one actually before I moved to Japan, because I read a book and it explained this whole concept before I even got the opportunity and knew that I was actually going to Japan. And that concept is called ikigai, which is a Japanese word. It means discovering your meaning and reasoning for life. And what they've learned was, and I learned throughout the book, and I later learned after reading articles and studies on this, people who have a purpose and a meaning in life have a longer life expectancy. They have a longer life expectancy by 7 years. Okay, so finding your meaning and purpose in life, ikigai, was a huge part of this. And also in Costa Rica, they also have this same concept, and it's called Plan de Vida, okay, in Nicoya. Okay, so this concept of having meaning and purpose in life was one of those, magnificent lessons that I learned. And what was cool was that I was already I was already on the learning journey. I was already sort of living in my purpose, but I was at the phase of living in my purpose where it was discovery. Like it was the beginning of finding what my true purpose was. And so after reading this book, it really sent me on a trip down that path, down that yellow brick road to really discover, like, what am I here for? What is my meaning? What is my purpose? How I'm going to serve the world? And what I discovered when I moved to Okinawa, Japan, I had the opportunity to talk to these elders. What I discovered was that many of them had different meanings and reasonings and purposes in life, even though it was in a very small village. And some of the purposes that they were serving in life was so beautiful. And so it just really instilled the concept in me to, live a purpose-driven life. And when I came back here to America, I said the only way I can do what I'm doing now with you guys, with my business, writing books, I have to start a purpose-driven business. So that's where I am. So that was the first lesson I learned, and I learned initially about it before I moved to Okinawa, and then it was like a deep dive as I was in Okinawa, experiencing life, experiencing people. And I'll talk a little bit about their mindset, how it's so different from, the Western world, and how our mindset in the Western world is actually counterintuitive to us actually being healthy. So reason number one, or lesson number one, is Ikigai. Discover and find your meaning and purpose and your reasoning for being here, okay? And live in that, okay? Don't just discover what it is, live in that, okay? Number two, the second lesson that I learned while living in Okinawa, Japan, was a concept called Hara Hachi Bu. Hachi means 8, okay? And Hara Hachi Bu means eat to 80%, okay? Eat to 80% only. And the reason why that's so important is because it's scientifically proven that when our stomachs get filled to about 80%, not 100%, but 80%, we're actually full, but our brains have a 20% lag time. So if we wait around for just a little bit, we'll discover that at 80%, we're actually full. So the concept was really beautiful because it really backed up the science that was already telling us that we should not eat to completely full. And so the other thing that I learned while living in Japan was that, or being in the villages, is that they ate their smallest meal towards the end of the day, okay? And a lot of people, their dinners are often the largest meals of the day, okay? So that was something else that I switched up, okay? I used to have breakfast as being my smallest meal, and most of you know that I eat breakfast around about lunchtime. So my breakfast isn't necessarily a true breakfast, but it is a true breakfast in the sense that I'm breaking a fast, because I've been sleeping all night and I haven't been eating, which means that I've been fasting while I was asleep. And so I just extended my breakfast out. But now what I do is I switch. My smallest meal is at the end of the day. Okay, and so that's something that I learned from them, and it's been very beneficial for my gut health as well too. So it makes a lot of sense, because the last thing you want to do is be digesting food while you're asleep. Okay, so you want to have a smaller meal toward the end of the day. Hara Hachi Bu, eat to only 80%. All right, number 3, plant slant, or eat your veggies. What that means is what they discovered, not only in Okinawa, Japan, that I learned from myself, but also in the other 4 blue zones, was that those populations, what they had in common was that they primarily ate a plant-based diet, okay? When I say plant-based, I'm not talking about the word that you see on the front of packaging that is saying it is plant-based, but then when you look, on the back of the packaging, there's eggs and, all kind of other ingredients in there. I'm talking about plant-based, meaning everything is made from plants. So in Okinawa, Japan, I had the opportunity to go do some research at the library. And I had an opportunity to see, like, as you guys know, America bombed not only Japan, but Okinawa, Japan, in the 1940s, I believe. And when they bombed them, they took over the island. And so they recorded a lot of data. And some of the data that they recorded was looking at the diets of Okinawans. And what they discovered was that 97% of their diets was plant-based, okay? 97% of their diet. The rest was small bits of meat here and there. They would put small chunks of meat and vegetables. Sometimes they would have an egg, but 97% of their diet was actually plant-based, made from plants, of plants, okay? And that was huge for me because, I started my journey in becoming plant-based, vegan, alkaline, whatever you want to call it, in 2010, 11. Okay, so I've been on this journey for about 13 years. And when I started this journey, there was no What the Health or all of these vegan products or vegan restaurants. You literally had to make your own food for the most part, especially when I moved to Okinawa. And so, for me, what I discovered along this journey was that, when I moved to Okinawa and I see that the people who are living the longest, who are the healthiest, are also eating, plants. 97% is telling me that not only did I make a good decision, but I made the best decision when it came to my health and my nutrition. Okay, so that's hugely, hugely important. And the other thing that I learned related to this is that almost virtually all of their meals are actually cooked. They cook them and make them at home, okay? And I want you to start to think for yourself, how many of your meals do you actually cook? For the vast majority of people, I would say about 70%. And I was just taking a poll amongst my friends and people I was meeting, I was asking how many of your meals are actually made by you, cooked by you. And the vast majority of people, 70% of people that I was surveying said that 70% of their meals are food that they get from outside of the home, okay? And I think that's a huge, huge difference compared to not only Okinawans, but also the other 4 blue zones as well too. Cooking your food at home, it means that it's always, in most cases, going to be healthier because you get to control what goes into the food, okay? Not only that, quite often, a lot of times the restaurants are actually, using some of the worst types of oils and often some of the worst type of ingredients. Whereas at home, you can control that. All right, so that's number 3, plant slant or eat your veggies, okay? 97% of what the Okinawans were eating, according to the research that I've done, was plant-based, okay? Number 4, life is movement. It's not about just going to the gym. Okay, what I noticed with the Okinawans, and I also noticed this when I was living in Japan and I would travel all around Japan, you would see people at the airport literally, doing exercises, doing jumping jacks, some push-ups, squats, things of that nature, and it was very normal. And so the Okinawans especially incorporated movement into their life. And so even when it came to gardening and farming, most of the tools that they were using weren't mechanical tools. It was mostly manual labor. And again, we're talking about people who are either centenarians or headed in that direction. And so instead of having some sort of mechanical plow, they literally had a hoe digging into the ground. Okay, so movement was part of their life, walking throughout the day. And I noticed that I started to incorporate that in my lifestyle too, as I was living in Okinawa too. Instead of, taking my car and driving to the beach, I would walk there, or I would take my bicycle, okay? And so I started to incorporate that into my lifestyle as well. And I noticed a huge difference in not only, my body physically, but I also noticed a huge difference mentally and emotionally too, because that time that you're using to walk can be therapeutic as well too. And I used it for that purpose for myself. Okay, so number 4, life is movement. Incorporate movement into your life, not just at the gym. Okay, number 5, less stress is best. When I tell you the people in Okinawa are the most chill people ever, it is, and this is what people don't know about Okinawa. Okinawa, although it is Japan, it is an island off of the coast of Japan. And more specifically, it's an island about 1,000 miles away from Japan. So the culture in Okinawa is totally different from the culture that is in Japan, okay? It is literally an island culture. The thing that, the culture that I would most compare it to would be like Hawaiians, okay? It is very similar to like Hawaiian culture, okay? And as you probably know, because you've probably gone somewhere in the Caribbean or gone to an island before, like island culture, people don't rush, okay? Island culture, like most people, they got a watch, but they're not really using their watch, so they're always late. They don't stress about the small stuff. They don't make the minor the major, okay? And I noticed that a lot in Japan. Like, I'll give you an example. Quite often you would be driving down a road and somebody would literally just stop in the middle of the road, put their hazards on, and take a phone call, okay? Now in America, like, you would hear like horns blaring and people cursing, but in Okinawa, like, you would see people literally say, okay, I don't know what's going on, but the people would just put their car in park and wait for the person to finish and then proceed on. Okay, so like it was a stress-less culture, okay? And that is a huge part of longevity. The less you stress, the best, okay? The less you stress, the less you're triggering your sympathetic nervous system. The less you're creating cortisol in the body, which is not only a fat storage hormone, but also cortisol is very acidic to the body too, along with the other stress hormones. And so what I noticed while living in Okinawa, Japan, like that's part of the culture that I adopted, was that taking it easy and not making the minor the major. And we'll talk a little bit about how you go about doing that, because that's another lesson. But I thought that that was huge for me. I think that was the most peaceful I've ever been in my life, having the opportunity to be in Japan and Okinawa and watch people who live this life on a daily basis, and having to shift myself from going from wanting to speed to go to everywhere, or being frustrated with lines in stores and things of that nature. By the time I left Japan, like in terms of culture, like I was very Okinawan when it came to patience, okay? Because that's really what you're learning throughout this process, is understanding patience and understanding that all things get worked out, and they always do, okay? So number 5, less stress is best, island culture, okay? Adopt it. The other thing that was huge, number 6, is healthy relationships. That's one of the things, especially in Ogami village, that I witnessed. Because what I noticed was that in the village, they would pair people up. So an 82-year-old would be paired up with a 102-year-old, okay? A 97-year-old would be paired up with a 70-year-old, okay? And it was almost like this peaceful, energetic exchange where the younger person, in this case being 70 or 82, would be the help for the person who's older, but also would come by, check on them. They would check on each other. But also what you would notice in that process was that the older person would give them wisdom, okay? And that's sort of like a part of even my culture back in the day growing up that was ingrained. Like every summer you would go spend time with the grandparents, okay? It wasn't just for the purposes of getting rid of the kids, but it was an opportunity to be around the grandparents to learn different things, okay? And so I saw that was ubiquitous in the village while I was there. It was like these healthy relationships, and even sometimes you would see the whole village, or you know, a certain segment of the village all get together and catch up on each other's day, talk about what they enjoyed about the day, maybe the fruit that they picked from that day, and share with each other, because the village is literally near a jungle. And it was beautiful to watch. I mean, when I first initially got there, I didn't know what was going on because I couldn't speak Japanese. But as I'm starting to pick up words, I'm like, man, this is really beautiful. Like people just getting around each other and talking about positivity, sharing each other's highlights, comforting each other when needed to be comforted. So that was really dope for me too, So that was a huge lesson that I wanted to bring back to the States when I came back as well too, okay? Number 7, incorporating superfoods, okay? These superfoods that they have in Okinawa were literally intermingled into their lifestyle, but also intermingled into their diets as well too. And what I mean by lifestyle, they intentionally grew these things in their gardens or on their farms. They also sold these things at little small markets. They incorporated them in the form of teas, in the form of seaweed. So I think it's Mizuku, the seaweed that they would go out to the sea and collect in the morning. Okay, so it wasn't like something that they always went and bought from the store. Sometimes they go out to the sea and grab it for themselves. I mentioned herbal teas, even some superfoods like here, we would consider the potato here unhealthy because it is. But there, they have a purple potato that is called beanie emo. And that purple potato is loaded with antioxidants and vitamins and minerals. Okay, so they ensured to incorporate that. They had another vegetable called Goya or bitter melon. And bitter melon is really good for diabetes and controlling the blood sugar levels. And they would incorporate that in a dish called champuru. Okay, and it's like a little stir fry. And so that was really dope as well too, just to see how they incorporated superfoods into their diet, into their lifestyle, into their side hustles with the markets, going out to the sea to grab seaweed and understanding the importance of that. And that's why when I came back here to the States, that's one of the reasons why I was like, well, I gotta make sure I incorporate, seaweeds in my diet because we don't get that here. Okay. And one of the unfortunate things is most of the food that is grown today is grown on land that is barren. It has no nutritional value in the soil. So if there's no nutritional value in the soil, there's going to be very little nutritional value in the actual fruit, vegetable, nut, the seed, or what have you. Okay, just to give you a comparison, I think, and don't quote me on this, but if you compared an apple today to an apple that was grown in 1952, it has almost a quarter of the nutrients that the apple in 1952 had when you compare here in the US. Okay, and so a lot of the nourishment that we can get from the sea by these sea vegetables. And so that's one of the reasons why you go on my website, you'll see I sell the Irish sea moss, okay? Incorporating that iodine that unfortunately a lot of people don't get enough of, incorporating a lot of other minerals that are in the ocean that are not necessarily in the soil, okay? Acerola, which is also known as Barbados cherry, which you've probably seen the video that I had on my farm, my tropical fruit farm, and we have the Barbados cherries, and they had them there in Okinawa, Japan. They also had moringa as well too. We have a couple of moringa trees on the farm as well too. So incorporating those type of superfoods into their daily diet, like I just thought that was amazing. It wasn't even something that looked intentional at all, but you can just see it was just a part of their diet, a part of their lifestyle. And I think that's a lesson of longevity that if you start to incorporate into your lifestyle, it can shift and not only add years, but add years of health or quality health as well too. All right. Number 8, a healthy, compassionate mindset. Man, when I tell you these people, they're different. Let me give you an example. Okay, so I also worked at a military hospital when I lived in Okinawa, Japan. And I remember, so Okinawa, Japan has so many American bases on it, okay? Military bases, okay? And I remember a story that one of the locals was telling me. They were telling me that a soldier, an American soldier, had gotten so drunk that they climbed up on their balcony, and they lived on like the 3rd level of an apartment building. They climbed up onto the balcony on the 3rd level, and they had their slide door unlocked. The soldier went through the door, got naked, went to sleep on the floor in the living room, and then the father comes out sees a soldier. Now, in America, if this happens, somebody is literally not only calling the police, but they're probably grabbing a gun. These people, these people called the base and said, "Hey, your soldier is here. I think he's drunk. He's gotten naked, so please bring him clothes." He didn't see the clothes were on the balcony. And when he was telling me the story, and he wasn't telling me to just say, "Hey, you want to know what happened?" He was telling me because he was like, "Hey, man, you should really talk to the American soldiers so they'll stop drinking so much." But that healthy, compassionate mindset, like that's one of the things that I took away from Okinawa as well, was the not only the importance of having it, but the benefits from having a healthy, compassionate mindset for others, which now extends to you too. Now you have a healthy, compassionate mindset for yourself. And when I tell you self-worth and self-value at an all-time low, and loneliness are at an all-time low, and suicide rates are at an all-time high, a healthy, compassionate mindset, in my opinion, is one of the number one solutions to that. Not only for yourself as an individual, but us as a collective as well too. And then the very last, number 9, lesson of longevity that I learned from living in Okinawa, Japan for the 4.5, almost 5 years, was find your tribe. I mentioned this before, but collectively inside of the village, they would create pocket groups. Okay, sometimes it was about interests. Sometimes it was about having similar hobbies, whatever it may be. But they would create these tribes within the collective tribe. And they would not only be responsible for checking on each other, loving each other, and doing things with each other, but they would be responsible for each other until the death, okay? Literally seeing each other to the grave. And each time, a person would pass away, they would add a new person to the tribe because, of course, as people get older, you add younger people to it. And what that told me was the importance of finding people who are in alignment with you. Because the thing was, Ogami Village is today, it's a bit of an anomaly even in Okinawa. So as a collective, Okinawa eats and lives a very healthier lifestyle compared to America. But because there's so many American bases on Okinawa, you're seeing the American influence on the island itself. And what you're starting to see is a ton of fast food restaurants, products that you never saw before, music, culture being infused in the rest of the island. Whereas when you went to Ogami Village, it was like this safe haven or pocket with people who embrace the same healthy lifestyle, which means that they were able to keep each other accountable along their journeys. So I thought that was beautiful. And that's what I'm doing here now that I moved back to America. A lot of you are a part of my membership program called Tribe Healing Community. That's why I named it that. And it's been a very, very beautiful process having a lot of you become part of my tribe, because just like you, I need people with a healthy mindset, or people who are aspiring to have a healthy mindset to become part of my tribe. We did a tribe day in June. They came down to the farm. We did a farm tour. I talked to them about not only growing your own food, but the importance of, making use of wherever you're at to grow your own food as well too. We talked about healing. We talked about so many different things, and we do that every year, sometimes twice a year in my tribe healing program. And so I've created my own tribe. And so I think it's very important for everybody out there to find your own tribe. And what that means is finding people who are on the same journey and path with the same mindset as you, to not only keep you accountable, but keep you company on this journey, because we are not meant to have this journey alone. So I hope you have enjoyed today's video and my 9 lessons of longevity in the blue zones. I'll put the link to talk a little bit about my tribe below. But until the next time, peace and blessings and Godspeed.